Hello and welcome to Captain Coder's Adventures in C#. I am Captain Coder, and today in this lesson I'm going to be going over creating a console project using .NET 6 and C# to write a simple program. I will link to this lesson in the description so you can follow along. You can read through it ahead of time, then come back and troubleshoot. It's up to you. But I'm going to be going through the process here of creating a console project using VS Code and the terminal. You can use Visual Studio if you'd like, or if you're using something else, that's fine. But this tutorial is specifically for VS Code and the integrated terminal. All right, so by the end of this lesson, we should know how to open an integrated terminal in VS Code, create a C# console project using the .NET command, and execute a program using the .NET command, and open and modify the generated program.cs file. All right, if you haven't done so already before starting, you should have VS Code installed as well as .NET. In this tutorial, we're doing with .NET 6. Later versions of .NET will probably work as well, but we're using .NET 6. The first thing you want to do is you're going to select a folder for your project. I've already created a folder called Simple Project. You should go ahead and make a folder called Simple Project. If you need help doing that, there's some video tutorials on how to create a folder on Windows and also on Mac. Then you're going to open up VS Code. So I have VS Code open here already. Go ahead and open that up. Then for you, you're going to go ahead and go to the File menu, open a folder, and then you're going to find this folder. I already have mine open, so I'm already in my simple project. Okay, so locate and open your project folder. We've done that here. On the left side here, we see that we have no files in our project. So if you're in your project, you should have a thing in your Explorer. You should have a section in your Explorer that says Simple Project or whatever you happen to name your folder. So I just verified that I have Simple Project open. And if you happen to have a Getting Started tab open, you can go ahead and close that. No, you don't have to. I've already closed mine here. Okay, done with this part. Let's go down to the integrated terminal. All right, so we are going to be using the integrated terminal, learn a little bit about the command line and a little bit about the .NET command, which you should have if you've installed .NET 6. So I'm going to go from the top menu. I'm going to select Terminal. If you're on Mac, this isn't part of your window. It's actually all the way at the top of the screen. So it's a little bit different on the Mac interface. So we're going to go to New Terminal, get a terminal down here. And I happen to be using a terminal called Bash. If you're on Windows, your default's probably PowerShell. So it might look a little something like this. The colors won't match exactly what mine are. Don't worry, the commands should work almost entirely the same. So I've created a new terminal here. I got it open, and you should see your folder name here. Mine happens to be on my D drive in a folder called Adventures in C#, and then Simple Project. All right, so gone ahead and opened that up. I verified the terminal pane is open, so I have a pane here called Terminal. Go ahead and check that. And again, I have Bash running. It's a special terminal. Usually doesn't come with Windows, but I have it installed. It's part of Git and subversioning, which I might do a video tutorial on sometime. But for now, know that your terminal, even if it's PowerShell, should work the same or very similar. All right, so let's learn a little bit about the terminal. The terminal is a way for you to interface the console. It's a way for you to interface with your operating system. For me, it's Windows. You might be on Mac, you might be on a Linux machine. But if you type something in here, it actually sends that command to your computer, and your computer attempts to interpret it. So type hello into your terminal, press enter, see what happens. For me, mine happens to say bash hello command not found. So this is the computer responding to bash. So bash is the terminal I'm using. I typed in hello, it sent that off to the operating system. It tried to find a program called hello. No such program exists, so I got an error message back that says command not found. All right, so what error message did I get? I got this one here, command not found. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that, paste it into my book so I can remember what that looks like. What did your error message look like? In PowerShell, it might look a little bit different. In ZSH, if you're on Mac, you're probably using ZSH, probably looked a little bit different. Next, we're gonna run the .NET command. So the .NET command is actually a real command that hopefully works for you. So if I just type .NET and press enter, I get some junk that gets spit out to me here. This is the operating system running this program, creates some memory for it, runs it, and if you don't supply any other, if you just type .NET, it says, hey, that there's actually a different usage for this program. To use it, it expects me to type something else in. And the command we're gonna type in actually is gonna be using -- version. So .NET, the word, not a period, -- version. And this is gonna tell you which version of .NET you have installed. So I just ran this .NET, so I'm gonna go ahead and check it off here. So one thing to note is it's super important that you type this in exactly like that. If I do no spaces, it tries to find a program called .NET -- version, can't find it. So the very first word here in computer science and programming, we often call this first symbol. The first symbol we see, the first word that it sees, is the program that's going to run. And then we're going to send in an option. When you put a dash like this is usually called a flag or an option. We're going to give it the version flag, and that tells the program, hey, I would like to know the version, and the program happens to know how to understand that and interpret it, and it just returns 6.0.400 for me. It's a little bit, at the time of publishing, this is a little bit behind the latest version. I know .NET 7 just came out, but we're gonna be using .NET 6, that's the long-term support. If you got an error message when you type .NET and it means .NET 6 isn't installed, I'll post a link just in case you need to find it to download .NET 6, download, install it. I don't think you usually need to restart your computer, but after you run the program, you might need to restart your computer to be able to access it. You definitely will need to restart VS Code if it wasn't installed previously. Once you've done that, we're gonna go ahead and add in here which version of .NET we have installed. For me, 6.0.400. All right, so we're moving forward here. We just finished the integrated terminal portion. Let's look at creating a console project. All right, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what we've been trying to do this whole time. This is the main point of this lesson. We're gonna run this command .NET new console in the terminal. So when I say run, that just means type it in and press enter. .NET new console, some stuff happened. All right, so I ran this command, and it's gonna use a template, the console app template. This is part of what comes with .NET. And you'll notice several files are created for us in our project folder. I get this folder called OBJ, it stands for object. So we end up with a bunch of generated files. Don't worry about that folder, you can safely ignore it. We get a program.cs file. This is essentially our source code. Oh, if you get this window that pops up, required assets to build and debug, you can safely click yes. You can also say not now. I would recommend clicking yes just so that in the future it's easy to get to these. That's just gonna have VS Code. If you have the C# extension installed, which you should, it's gonna create these files here, which VS Code uses for building and running your program. You'll also notice you might have a bin folder that gets created. This is short for binary. This is where when you compile your program, the executable file, so on Windows you'll get a .exe file. On Mac, I think you also get a .exe file, but you'll also get like a DLL file, and then there's special ways to run it. Don't worry too much, I'm going off on a tangent here. The most important thing to know is that you should have a file called simpleproject.csproj. Not necessarily simple project, it's gonna have the same name as the folder, as the directory you created. This tells the .NET program how it should run this program. And then a program.cs. These are the two important files. The most important one for you is the program.cs. gonna go ahead and check this off. I went ahead and clicked yes on that dialog. All right, we just verified that our program.cs and we have a simple project.cs proj were created. We can see those here. And now we're gonna run a console program. Our very first time running our program here. We do .NET space run, and you press enter. This launches the .NET program. It says, hey, there's a project in this folder, so it searches for a CS proj file, and it says execute that program. So it compiles it. So here's what's interesting. I'm gonna go ahead, don't worry too much. Oh, I'm not gonna do the command here. I'm gonna delete these folders. So this bin folder and this obj folder. What's interesting, if you've programmed in Python or JavaScript, you don't get this type of thing. Python a little bit, but JavaScript, other programming languages, you don't necessarily get a compilation process. When I do .NET run, it actually generates a program, an executable file in this binary. There's a bunch of other stuff, but I have this simple project.dl and simple project.exe. When I do .NET run, it makes those files and then it runs that file. All right, and this file is super simple. All it does is display the text hello world into our console. So I went ahead and did that. Go ahead and check it off to keep track of where I am and verify that it displayed hello world. Done. All right, now we can modify our program.cs. So program.cs, as I was stating before, I'm gonna go ahead and close this sidebar now so we can get the whole thing. This is the actual source code of our of our C# project. .cs stands for C#. And program happens to be the source code that it's going to use to generate an executable. And then when we do .NET run, it runs it. So we went in our Explorer, we opened it up, and we can see here, there's 2 lines, there's 3 lines, but there's 2 lines that have text on them. The first one here, it's called a comment. So anything that you'd start with 2 forward slashes in C# gets ignored. This is, you can put human readable text. So this is sort of a comment for yourself, something for a human to look at. A computer's not going to interpret it. And in this case, it's saying, hey, this was generated from a template. You can see the new console template for more information. And then it has 1 line of executable code. This is a statement, console.writeLine, and then the string, this is called the string, hello world. So everything between these double quotes gets translated into our program and then transferred to our terminal. All right, so let's update this code. We're gonna make it say, let's go. So I'm gonna take that. Very carefully, you want to leave everything between the double quotes. Get rid of the double quotes, you're gonna be in trouble. What happens if I get rid of the double quotes? If I change it to just let's go, I get this big red squiggly saying a bunch of stuff. There's supposed to be a comma. It's not the real issue, but you gotta make sure you have double quotes around text. This is called a string. In a future lesson, we'll go more in depth about what exactly a string is. But the important thing to know here is that text that you want to have explicitly shown needs to go between double quotes, and it's called a string. All right, so I've updated that. I have this little dot here telling me I haven't saved my file, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. File, save. I also press Control S. If you're on Mac, you can do Command S. A lot of my students will turn on the autosave feature. I'm old school, so I don't like autosave, but this will make it so every time you sort of done typing, it'll autosave for you. I don't like using autosave, but you can turn it on if you'd like. I'm gonna turn it off for me. I chronically press save all the time. All right, so I've updated it to let's go. I've saved my file. Let's do .NET run again. There we go, we have let's go. All right, so you can get text to be displayed in your terminal, in your console, using the WriteLine command. All right, so this is called the WriteLine method, console.WriteLine method. This stuff here in between the parentheses is called an argument. We're passing in the argument let's go, exclamation point. And this method tells the computer, hey, I should print something out. And we didn't talk about it yet, but the semicolon is really important. This says to the computer, hey, that's the end of what I wanted to do for that line of code. All right, let's add another one. I'm gonna add a line of code, console.writeLine to the moon. To the moon. Oh, should it be TOO? I think it's to the moon. Now I'm not sure. I'm a computer science teacher, not an English teacher. One of these is wrong. Let's go to the moon. To TOO? I'm so confused now. I think TOO has to do with too much. I'm gonna go with 1T. Someone correct me in the comments. Let me know I'm a fool. It's okay. All right, so I added this in here. I saved my file, and now I'm gonna run it. Magic, there we go. Let's go to the moon. Excellent, I'm gonna check these off, done and done. We got let's go to the moon. You can add as many write lines as you want. Each one will go on its own line. That's why it's called write line. All right. There are a couple common errors you might see in this. If you forgot to put a semicolon, you get this error here. If you hover, it'll sort of tell you the error message. And if you try and run your code, you'll get an error message out in your console. In this case, expected a semicolon. All right, so at the end of each statement, each one of these is called a statement, you need a semicolon. Weird fact in C# and many programming languages, you don't need to put a new line. So these semicolons are really the way you tell the computer, hey, there's a new line of code here. I'll put that back in. Let's see, what else do we got here? This one. If we didn't put in our double quotes, we'll get an error here that is gonna tell us like the syntax error, comma expected. This is basically telling us that it's trying to, it doesn't know how to interpret to the and moon. In this case, you might get something doesn't exist. So we're gonna go ahead and put this back in. All right, and then this other error here, if you forgot to put a double quote at the end of one of your strings, you might get an error message telling you there's a new line in constant. It's a bunch of different errors you might get, but the main point here is your text needs to go between double quotes, and that needs to be inside of the parentheses for the write line, as well as a semicolon at the end. All right, so we have our very first console project. So here's your first challenge. All right, your first challenge is create a short biography program, a short bio. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your name, nickname? You don't have to give me your real name. What are some interesting things about you? What are things you like to do on the weekend? What do you do for fun? What are you studying in school? Are you in school? Let me know. When you're done, if you have installed the Captain Coder extension for VS Code, you can generate a share link by clicking this little icon in the top right. You will get, in a moment, a little share link, and just share that code. Share that code, send it to a friend, show them what you're doing, let me know how things are going, and when you're done, claim that reward. All right. I hope this was helpful. I had a great time. I'll see you in the next video.